Moving, having a baby, changing jobs, sickness, life just happens, right? But you don't always want to completely derail your school year because of it. So what do? If you're new here, I'm Rian, a Christ-following wife and a homeschool mom to 3 boys. Here we talk all things homeschool, and we will learn together how to use our roles as wife, mom, teacher, and homemaker in order to glorify God. Okay guys, so funny story. I look a little different, right? Sun's a little different, everything. I lost a big chunk of footage out of the middle of this video. So instead of re-filming the entire thing, I'm just gonna come in and fill in the gap, and then you'll see me go back to my old clothes and hair and lighting situation. Okay, so it's been a while since I've done an actual regular sit-down video, but as you probably heard on my live, we've had COVID, new baby, a move, lots of different things going on. We had some complications with the move from the previous owners of this house, and things have just been a little wild around here. But all the while, my 3 boys have stayed mostly healthy and very active, and I did not want to just sit them in front of the TV for 24/7 for the 3 weeks that our life kind of got derailed. So here are my 6 things that I recommend when you are dealing with a crazy life transition, or just kind of some things that are being thrown your way that you weren't really prepared for, but you don't want to derail the school year. The first thing that I cannot say enough, and if you've heard me say it once, you've heard me say it 100 times, is get outside. Now, if you're bedridden, or if you're super sick and just can't, or whatever, you might not be able to do this. But if you have a fenced-in yard or older kids or whatever, get those kids outside. During the beginning part of our quarantine, before I was super sick, only my husband was sick, I would go sit outside with the kids and just soak up that vitamin D and let them run around. We would take walks just around our block, obviously staying away from other people, but just getting that fresh air and that vitamin D was very helpful in the healing process for everyone. But also just getting out, breathing the fresh air, getting some exercise in. And my boys were still out exploring all the bugs. You know, it's summertime, there's bugs everywhere. There's new plants and flowers and everything for them to explore. They would dig in the dirt, they played in the sprinkler. So they got out, they played baseball, they jumped on the trampoline, they played football, they played basketball. So it was a PE time, but also kind of a nature study time for them. And it took nothing from me. Even the days I was super sick and couldn't make it to go sit out with them, I could see them from the window, and we had a fenced-in yard at our old house. This house, we're working on getting it fenced in. So I could just let them go and run, and it was educational and very helpful for everyone. The second thing that I'm, again, always going to recommend is read. If all else fails, pick up a book and read. Now, this can be a read aloud. That's one of my favorite times of our day is when I do get to do the read aloud. There was a point when I was super sick and couldn't even do that. There's also been points when I was trying to pack and kind of frantic packing because we got behind with the sickness that I didn't have time to sit down and read to them. But every day, no matter what, we set a timer for 30, 45 minutes, sometimes an hour, depending, and everyone had to sit and read a book. And especially for those elementary kids, just the repetition of practicing reading is so beneficial to them, and it's a good form of entertainment that is screen-free. And the third thing I'm going to recommend is games. Now this one depends on the kids' ages. We've had times where I'm like, oh, you guys go play a game. Well, then I have to play referee, or I have to explain the directions or whatever. And sometimes that's okay. But when I can barely keep my eyes open because I am so sick, that doesn't really work. So just kind of play this according to your kids' ages and abilities. But there's some games that my kids can definitely play on their own. My 3-year-old is obsessed with Candyland right now. My older boys love Sorry and Battleship and Connect 4 and things like that, and they do not need me for that. And that is educational. They're learning how to work together and cooperate and get along, which is very good. But they're also, learning those basic math skills and whatever else that game may entail. You could also obviously pull out the board games, or one of our favorite things to do is to pull out puzzles. I love doing puzzles. I actually just bought one the other day that's sitting at my table taunting me, but I have too many things to do in the new house to sit down and do a puzzle, but soon I will. And sometimes my kids just make up games. Sometimes I'm watching them playing and I'm like, what are you guys doing? And they try to explain the game to me and I'm like, oh, okay. Makes no sense whatsoever, but guess what? That's them learning, that's them using problem solving. It's all good things. And then I'm not gonna lie, my kids did have some video game time. We obviously limited that each day. I didn't want them sitting on video games all day long, but there was definitely some Minecraft and Mario Kart and stuff like that going on in our house, which in small doses, I don't think that's necessarily bad and can actually be somewhat educational too. And the fourth thing we did was purposeful play. Never underestimate the power of Legos. My kids have played hours and hours and hours of Legos the last month or so, and I'm okay with that. They were building different creations. We have tons and tons of spaceships downstairs. They like to get the sets with the instructions and all that, and there's a lot of learning to be done there. But they also just like to take everything apart and imagine things on their own and build things on their own. And then after they create things, they were having imaginary play together. All three of them from age 10 down to 3. We have, like I said, all those spaceships, and we had a full Star Wars story going on that I didn't understand, but they did, and they were having a lot of fun playing that. We also play things like Magnetiles. We have a marble track or marble run that my 3-year-old especially loves right now. For your older kids, those little science kits or those like excavation kits where you have to dig out the gems or the fossils or whatever it is. They've done a couple of those in the last month. Those keep them busy and learning. My mom just bought them a volcano kit, and so I'm going to let them work on that this week while I'm unpacking our house. And that goes right along with the volcanology unit that we're finishing up from Campfire Curriculums. But there's lots of little kits like that you can do, or you can just use those educational toys that you have and just be intentional about setting those out before them, and it will keep them busy and it is learning still. The fifth thing that my kids have done a lot also is just creating. Now, this is sometimes really annoying because they really like to cut and glue and make things, and my type A brain cannot handle all the little tiny pieces of paper all over the floor, but they're old enough that when I say, okay, it's time to clean it up, they know that I mean business and I mean to get down on your hands and knees and clean up every little scrap of paper. And so my friend Jill had sent us one of those cardboard castles that you can put together, and they had colored and everything. Well, then they went around and cut up paper and made crowns for the king and the prince and whatever, and they made shields and they made cardboard swords and whatever. And so it was imagination, it was art, it was great, it was messy, but they cleaned it up themselves, so that was okay. If you're brave, if you have older kids, you can do paint or Play-Doh or beads or perler beads or whatever else you want to do. Of course, all of that depends on the age of your kids and their abilities. But I've also done things like just giving them a piece of paper, instead of saying just here, go color, go draw, saying, okay, boys, I want you to design your own theme park. Show me what kind of roller coasters you would have. Show me what kind of food you would have at your theme park. Or if your kids like to write, you can give them story prompts. That takes very minimal participation on your part. Say, okay, if you could do anything you want for a full 24 hours, what would you do? If you could have any superpower you wanted, what would you pick and why and how would you use it? So little things like that. If your kids like writing, my boys aren't super into writing, but they love drawing. So I would do the same thing with drawing, like draw a picture of what you do on a day where you could pick everything, where we go, what we eat, what you wear, all this stuff. And that gives them a direction to go, and it makes that coloring and drawing time last a lot longer in my house. Of course, you could also use Art Hub for Kids. We've done a lot of that also. And the sixth thing that we have done is we have utilized our TV. Not gonna lie, there were times when I just had to sleep, like COVID, pregnancy, the stress of moving, there was a lot that went into that. Maybe I'll tell that story another time. But there were times where I just had to sleep. And with a 3-year-old, you gotta kind of sleep with one eye open. And so I was not afraid to use the TV from time to time. My 3-year-old watched a lot of PBS Kids. Some of those shows are a little questionable to me, but we do enjoy Wild Kratts. He watches Word World and Daniel Tiger sometimes. My bigger boys like some of those documentaries on Disney Plus. There's a lot of good animal ones and they really enjoy those. And they also like to watch Wild Kratts. And then of course YouTube is full of any sorts of educational videos that you can imagine. Now there are times for non-educational things. But if you're really wanting to keep them in the mode of learning, it's really good to use that TV as a tool to do that. So those are my 6 tips. But all of that to say, if you have kids who work really well independently, or if you have some curriculum where they can do a page or 2 on their own, go ahead and keep that going if you feel like it. If you can just say, hey, go do page 82 in your math workbook, and they can do that, then let them do it, because that doesn't take much from you and they're still staying engaged. But I think what is most important during these times is that this is such a great opportunity for your kids to grow in ways other than academics. And so with all of this going on, we had some kind of stressful and scary days, and we were just able to pray with our kids. We were able to talk with our kids about what was going on. They were able to learn compassion when both Mama and Daddy were out sick. They were able to learn some responsibility where they had to kind of help take care of us in their own way. They had to, just learn how to navigate life. And I think that that is more important a lot of times than academics, because life is going to happen no matter what. There's going to be times when their wives are having babies, or when they're moving across town, or they're, whatever. And they're going to have to learn how to navigate that. And, we had to deal with some complicated people in the moving process. I'm not going to go into that story. They were watching us and how we dealt with that, and they were looking to see, if we dealt with that gracefully or not. And it was a little bit close sometimes, but there are just so many learning experiences that homeschooling offers that are outside of the books, because they're seeing us day in and day out, good days, bad days, and everything in between. And it presents very good learning opportunities. So we are currently phasing out of this really hard season, and hopefully we'll have some more even keel days for a while. But everyone lived, everyone survived, everyone grew. My 3-year-old actually had like a verbal explosion in this past month for some reason. He's using words that I'm like, I didn't even know you knew that word. And so despite me, my kids were learning. And the book will still be there when we're ready in a few weeks to take it back on. And the beauty of homeschool is that we're always learning, adapting, growing, and every opportunity is an opportunity to point our kids to Christ, and that is the most important thing. So comment down below any tips that you have for homeschooling and keeping your kids busy and still kind of educated and in the swing of things during life's hard times. Please subscribe if you haven't. And my next video is going to be a collaboration with Yasmin over at Mommy on the Move. And it is a purely preschool dual lesson with us, so you don't want to miss it. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.